You're listening to the Bored to Death Bingecast, talking TV shows and movies in easily digestible chunks. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and other assorted gender assignations. Welcome back to the Bored to Death Bingecast. I am Jay, being joined by
Chris
and
Zeke,
and we are back to continue our binge of Gundam, the Whole Damn Saga.
we had to take almost a year break. God help us.
It wasn't really that long. It just seemed like it took that long because it was a long series. But while I think we said at the beginning of this that the intent was to go in release order of the series, Chris felt it was probably better to go a little bit chronological with what we're going to do today.
I basically said that for the 1 year war stuff, because if we went in like release date order, we would be bouncing back and forth in and out of the 1 year war. And so I was like, let's just do the 1 year war stuff, get all that out, and then we can do everything chronologically after that.
Or release order.
Release order, yes.
And as a result, we are doing a shorter series in the Gundam franchise with Mobile Suit Gundam 8th MS Team.
My favorite!
Yes. So Zeke's very happy about this, both because one of his favorite series in the franchise and shorter, so he's not going to start losing his mind.
And it's also
again.
apparently the first time he saw animated boobies.
This is true. First time I seen animated movies, but the reason why I like this one is because the Gundams are more realistic. They're more to ground level.
They're grounded, because of the majority after the first episode, the entire show takes place in Southeast Asia. So it's all very grounded. None of the Gundams you ever see them in space.
None of the whole space battle
they're
stuff.
all
Having to convert the Gundam so it can function in on land as opposed to in space and all the other.
This is the closest you can get to actually talking about Gundam in real life because everything is to the bone level real life physics.
Yeah, and especially when, you see an issue with the leader of the 8th MS team when he discovers gravity.
Gravity, man. It's not just a good idea. It's the law.
Now, if you're wondering how the best way to describe this particular Gundam series is the title of the second episode, Gundams in the Jungle. That is literally the best way you can describe this show.
Yeah. And I don't have a problem with that. I really do appreciate when they do more grounded, realistic stuff with mechas and everything. Well, it's like with Pacific Rim, which we, because we just watched, The Black, and it's like, yeah, they're cool and all, but it's just sort of like there's a huge element of the fantastical with all of that stuff.
Well, yeah, because, gravity.
Yeah. Although, at least in Pacific Rim, they did sort of give the sense that the Jaegers had a sense of weight to them. They weren't like blitzingly fast. There was you could sort of see like it took a while for even a rocket punch to really cross that distance to connect because there's a huge amount of weight that rocket's got to push.
Hence the boosters on the wrists.
Yep. And well, with Gundam, as I sort of commented during during Mobile Suit Gundam when we were doing that one, they gave a definite sense. Granted, a lot of it was them reusing animation sequences to fill as filler, with the various conversions, the core fighters docking into the Gundam parts and everything sort of slotting into place. I appreciated that they at least showed that work as opposed to just suddenly, boom, there it is. Yeah, exactly. Very sort of felt Voltron-esque to me, but that's because I, did see some of Voltron when I was growing up. So
of course,
I'm always going to think back to that, even though Gundam predated Voltron by quite a bit.
I do not know when Voltron came in terms of when it was released in Japan. I know that stuff like Mazinger, I think, came out before Gundam, so that predates Gundam. But Gundam
codified basically the entire mecha genre.
Yeah, it added a little bit more realism, like scientific realism to it. But this 8th MS team shows basically it's like, okay, so there's no space, There's a little, just a bit more realism in terms of this. You're also going to see a slight change in terms of the technology because, well, a lot has changed technology-wise since 1979.
Yeah.
Like in the original Gundam.
And just pardon me for interrupting. Refresh my memory. When was 8th MS Team released?
8th MS Team was released, I think it was 94?
Okay, so a good, decade and a half after the original Mobile Suit Gundam.
Oh, yeah, it came out well after that. Like, this, I remember when this was on Toonami. Because that was when they started bringing the Gundam animes to America, which they need to do in terms of dubbing. More on that later. This one a lot more grounded. And and the technology thing, like if you remember in the cockpit for the Gundam, there was a lot more like flips and switches and knobs and shit. That's not really the case with these suits. And the Gundams that you see in this are supposed to be based off of Amuro's Gundam, but
which makes sense. It was the Gundam.
Yeah, but take the space part away from it.
Yeah.
Do you think they're not meant to leave Earth ever?
No.
And that's fine. It's just like when. Well, I should probably say if mankind ever does get into proper space battles stuff, the technology we use for spaceborne battles is going to be different than the stuff that we use on Earth.
Oh, yes.
Because you're going to have issues of making sure the chemical reactions for your guns will actually work so that they can actually fire in vacuum, say. Maybe by that point they'll get to some sort of like maglev kind of thing, using magnetics to hurl the bullets or something. I don't know.
So rail cannon.
Yeah, kind of like that, like miniature sort of thing, but maybe not quite so freaking powerful.
Now, I already know that you're going to ask me, when does this take place in terms of the original Mobile Suit Gundam?
Yes.
This takes place before, during, and after Operation Odessa.
So I'm trying to remember when Odessa was in the middle. That was sort of the midpoint of the series.
It was close to the midpoint.
I think I remember you saying that we see the speech or whatever.
Yes, we see Girin's speech. From when his brother was killed.
And that sort of gives you the reference point of
when it takes place.
Okay. So, yeah. 8th MS Team, anything you want to add here, Zeke?
Well, we know it's going to be a real binge when you bring out the notebook.
Yes. As I may have mentioned during the original Gundam binges, I do have a little notebook so I can keep track of names and the types of Gundams and the various factions and whatnot going on. I'll make notes about this is something to discuss, sort of thing, while I'm keeping notes about what's happening in the episode. But while we were doing when Chris and I were doing the Mando cast, or when we were all doing WandaVision, I wasn't busting out the notebook so much. In the case of WandaVision, it's because most of the characters and stuff that we were going to be dealing with were already, a lot of them were characters we sort of already knew, and the names are generally going to be more Western as opposed to in Gundam, where there's a lot of the Asian influence in there, and the names aren't necessarily going to be quite as easy to remember. So I'm just like, especially because the first Gundam series was long, so there's a lot of characters to keep track of. Whereas in a shorter series like The Mandalorian or WandaVision, 8 episodes or 9 episodes apiece, not as many characters that you're going to have to keep track of. And while 8th MS Team is not as long as the rest, it's still going to be a completely new set of characters that I'm going to have to keep track of. So
one day these notes will be seen by all.
No, they won't.
Make sure the handwriting is nice and pretty.
No. as you know,
it's not going to be like Nostalgia Critics scripts where he auctioned them off.
Yeah, because we're not doing scripted podcast stuff here, like the Nostalgia Critic or Angry Joe or whatever. I imagine Angry Joe has some sort of script, maybe just bullet points.
Maybe for his Angry Joe, his video game reviews, he probably sticks to like a script, but a lot of times it's him just going off.
Yeah, and one of the YouTubers that I subscribe to for Destiny lore, My Name is Bife. I know he does script most of his videos. The only ones that aren't scripted are like the gameplay stuff that he does with some of his clanmates, the T-Slate videos, and most recently he did one video that was completely unscripted, and he acknowledged that it was unscripted because he was just giving his thoughts on Destiny's storytelling in the last couple of seasons. But at any rate, I do keep notes. We don't script. So, at any rate.
I tried doing that and I couldn't keep up, and I was like, screw it, I'll just try to memorize it as much as I can.
When you were doing your like solo cast stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, Mobile Suit Gundam, the 8th MS team. So let's get into it, and we'll be back after the binge.
While the binge is happening, thanks for listening to our podcast. Please give us a like and subscribe and spread the word. You can reach us on social media on Facebook or Twitter at BTD_Bingecast. The Bored to Death Clan is part of the CKCC Radio podcast family, including J Bunny's Music Hub, the Race Nerd Podcast, Real Paranormal Talk, Ranking Tracks, Motivational Moves, Girls Who Like, and The Nerd Table. Please consider supporting CKCC Radio on Patreon. And now, the binge is done, so let's get to the discussion.
And we're back. So, definitely a different sort of vibe than Mobile Suit Gundam. We don't have the whole like doomed hometown thing going on like Amuro did.
You talking about his colony?
Yeah, the side. What was it? Side 7 he was from.
Yeah.
And at this point in the war, they're already starting to mass produce mobile suits. Not quite to the same caliber as Gundam, but still better than what they've been using, and pretty much in response to the fact that Zeon is producing Zaku's like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the war, yeah, the Federation had like next to no mobile suits. Like they just weren't very effective against the Zaku's. The Zaku was actually more advanced.
Yeah.
In terms of like their ships, they're also using beam weaponry. So of course they had the superior firepower and the greater numbers, but
eventually the Feddies caught up, and now we're where we are basically.
Yes.
And so, but we're introduced first to some of the supporting members of the eighth team on Earth with Karen Joshua and is it Elidor?
Yeah.
Elidor, who's one of their like support guys on the radar, essentially.
Yeah, his way of radar isn't the usual like there's a screen that goes boop boop. It's not that.
It's more sound based.
Yeah, so that way he could hear the
vibrations
the vibrations in the ground, because the Minovsky particles mess with radar, so they can't use. That
would explain it. Obviously the Minovsky particles also interfere with radio transmissions. We saw that in the last episode with the Obsolus broadcasting its Minovsky particles, and it was sort of interfering with the radio.
Yeah.
But then we get introduced to Shiro Amata, Ensign Shiro Amata, who is transferring from Side 2 to Earth to be the commander of the 8th MS team in Southeast Asia.
But it's not really announced that he's going to be the CEO of the 8th MS team until
the end of the first
episode. Right at the end of the first episode.
When they're en route from Side 2 to Earth, when they notice some like flares going off, and then they realize, no wait, those are explosions. there's a fight going on over there.
There's a fight going on over there.
And they go to, so Shiro takes a ball, basically like a little one-man like pod.
It's basically what the ball was supposed to be used for prior to the war was. It was like a maintenance thing where they go out to like
zero-G construction, basically.
Yeah, that's essentially what it was for, and including like helping with maintenance on colonies and ships and whatever.
Yeah,
That's
it definitely
what
looks like it. And then because of the war,
They were like, let's strap a gun to the top of that.
Let's strap a couple guns to it. Yeah.
The best way to explain the ball for people who don't know Gundam, think you're undersea, underwater submersible thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is people, hands, and then they say cannon on top.
Like your starter little mini sub in Subnautica. It has a couple little manipulator arms, and it's that sort of spherical kind of shape. But because of the war, they strap a couple of guns to it.
And they're basically supposed to be supporting units to the... well, when we first see them in the original Mobile Suit Gundam, they were more like support units for the GMs.
Yeah, which are the sort of general issue, not quite as powerful as the Gundam-inspired mobile suits.
But still more powerful than the Zaku's because of better generator, better weaponry, etc., etc., etc.
The still the red shirts of this series.
Yep. And so Shiro goes out there and he finds one GM from the Feds had survived this encounter, damaged, but had survived. He comes in, distracts this more advanced Zaku that was fighting it.
The Zaku was supposed to be helping to collect data for the Optimus.
Yeah.
Like,
And
the top half was Zaku, the bottom half was it's the one that the Black Tri-Stars piloted.
yeah. And
The Doms, that's it.
the DOMs. And yeah, literally that's all that this advanced Zaku was out there to do, was just to gather combat data to feed into the Optimus, which is this new like super weapon that the Zeon are developing on Earth. But between Shiro coming in and Sanders, the pilot of the surviving GM, the Zaku gets caught, wrapped up, disabled, and then...
Cannon to the head.
Yep. But the pilot survives, a female pilot, Aina Sahalin.
A timestamp of the era, because a lot of times in that series, like, oh my god, it's a girl! No way!
Yeah. Well, in this case, there was a brief... It's a woman? Yeah, but then it's just sort of like it's accepted that that's the case.
And he falls madly in love with her, I think.
Well, not straight away. It's more just after they have a brief little fight inside a derelict Federation ship, and she gets injured. He finally manages to convince her to let him patch it up, mostly by ripping her helmet off, shoving it in her hands, and then wrapping some duct tape around the hole.
Duct tape fixes everything, including spacesuits.
That's, if you ever watch The Martian, that's exactly what Matt Damon's Mark Watney does in a lot of cases. Is he uses some duct tape to patch up some holes in his suit.
So God, if you guys ever get me on a spaceship, I'll make sure I bring a roll of duct tape. That's all.
Bring multiple rolls.
Multiple rolls of duct tape.
There's a leak in here somewhere. I got it!
Yeah, basically. I think they've even done that in The Expanse, although I think they may make it a slightly more advanced, high-tech kind of thing, but it's still essentially the same deal.
What do you call high-tech duct tape?
Super duct tape.
It's been a while since I watched some of The Expanse, and I haven't watched all of it. But at any rate, but yeah, they sort of realize this person isn't at all what I thought the enemy would be like.
Yeah, it's like all those times where we see like a TV series where like one of the good guys has to work along with like an enemy soldier or whatever, and they have to learn to work together to survive. And
they realize the enemy are just people. They're not the demons that we keep painting them to be, which is common in wars. You try to demonize the enemy, to dehumanize them, so that your soldiers don't feel guilt for killing people, because that will seriously mess up your soldiers.
Yes.
But now they're like, we don't have enough oxygen to just sit here and wait forever. We need to, and the wreckage we're in is drifted. We need to call for help. So they split up to find like a radio or something. His
missiles.
yeah, and his watch, the watch in his suit got got wrecked in the scuffle, and he sort of holds it up. He's like, "Can't meet back here in 10 minutes because I don't have any way to tell the time." So she takes
My
out
clock's broken.
she takes out her personal watch, which is like a little amulet sort of thing.
It's funny because when she first shows it, it's got like the hands on it. She clicks a button and then switches over to like a digital clock.
I mean, it's the future, so it stands to reason that you might have both capabilities in there.
Have you not seen smartphone watches now? I mean, come on, they have the little spinny thing with the hands, and then
Same thing.
Here's the thing, though. That clock, even though it's broken, can never be on time now. Think about it. The number one joke: a clock that's broken.
A broken clock is right twice a day.
That clock can never be right.
Depends on what format it displays the time. If it's showing it in military time, then it's only right once a day.
It was probably digital.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's screwed.
At any rate, she gives it to him, and he then finds some missiles, and he's just like, "We'll launch these. Somebody will come to investigate the explosion."
We should be in the fireworks department.
Yeah, and so they blow up some wreckage, and the rest of her team, a couple of Zaku's show up. So she heads off to them. He's like, the Fed will come for me, and they do, but he refuses to go with her. And
he's like, I don't want to be a prisoner.
Yeah, just like she didn't want to be a prisoner when he caught her. But
that should have shown some foreshadowing when the grunts went, "Okay, we're not going to go after the guy because she said they're not dangerous."
I wonder if they're going to regret that. And at any rate,
so he gets picked up by Terry in the now still damaged but more repaired GM.
It has duct tape all over it.
Yeah. Well, at least over some of the holes. But but no, she mostly just says it's not worth it. He's not going to pose a threat to us. It's just
no, guys.
Don't waste your ammo.
Don't waste the ammo. Just go.
Yeah, exactly. And so then Shiro's picked up by the ship that he'd been on, and he's then just sort of sleeping in his chair while waiting for them to land on Earth. And then we get to see Giran Zabi's speech from the original Mobile Suit Gundam, giving us the time scale of it. And that's when Sanders basically is just like, I'm going to be assigned to the 8th MS team. And then Mikkel Niederich basically points to Shiro's like, that's your commanding officer.
That's our CO sleeping right there. And they saluted him while he was sleeping.
They're going to be waiting for a while because the military protocol, if it's anything like it is here in like American military, common military here as it is, there, you have to wait to be acknowledged before you stop saluting.
Well, there's also another problem though. Once that 0G goes bye and that G kicks in,
yeah. Well, we don't see that whole thing happen to them. When the next episode starts, they're already on Earth. They report to Battalion Commander Kojima, who's just sort of like air conditioning's for wussies.
Take a deep breath of that fresh natural air. It ain't that weak and positive stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And at the same time, Aina's arriving at the secret Zeon factory, which is where they're building the Obsolus. And we start learning a little bit about some of the other team. We're introduced to Master CPO Karen Joshua, part of the 8th team. And Elidor and basically grabs Mikkel and is just sort of like, you're with me.
You're with me.
He's
that
like
thing right there.
Because Mikkel was just sort of like, where's my mobile suit?
I'm gonna be a Gundam pilot. Not in your dream, kid.
Yeah.
You're with me.
Keep dreaming, kid.
You get to drive that gun. I'm your assistant. No.
Especially because he's an ensign, also, I believe, but I guess lesser grade than Shiro. And Shiro, everyone just sort of looks at him as just sort of like, there's the gung-ho newbie. I wonder how long he's going to last. Especially because they start hinting at Sanders' reputation.
Well, before that, they were talking about the fact that the redhead chick was driving people up the wall, mentally insane.
Mm-hmm. Well, because she's a hard ass.
Well, yeah, because what was it where they were like, oh yeah, whatever happened to the OCO? Oh, he's in a mental hospital, and then you hear, which you caused.
Yeah.
It's from the drunk old guy.
Yeah, from the drunk Dr. Wily guy. I'm sure he has a name, but they never actually. I don't know that they actually specified what it was.
See, the Rogan dog is on Wikipedia.
Yeah, he's got his little Gundam wiki open.
Mickard is his name.
Mickard?
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever. I'm probably just gonna keep calling him Wily because he looks like frickin' Dr. Wily, like an alcoholic Dr. Wily.
I mean, it's like Rick and Morty. Rick is literally just a drunk Doc Brown.
Yep. And Morty is a neurotic, stammering,
Not
idiotic Marty McFly. But and then in second episode was Gundams in the Jungle, which is basically the whole series in a sense.
Southeast Asia, what's in there?
And they're basically moving out to try to push the Zeon defensive line back, so they can try to locate where this base is. And everyone's still basically expecting Shiro to fuck something up because he's Commander Newbie.
And in a weird way, he does. Like, for starters,
He's still not used to fighting in gravity.
Yeah. And, like, he's running... He's in the suit. He's in his Gundam. And he's running in it, and it trips. And he's like, shit. Forgot I'm not fighting in Zero G anymore.
And they're also... It's nighttime. And he gives the order, like, shut off your lights, switch to infrared and laser sights sort of thing.
But you forgot the most promising thing before this. Before they went on the mission, he did a heroic speech.
He's just like, I don't want any heroics.
What the hell does he do?
He goes running in to save Joshua from a Zaku.
Well, yeah, he does that. And then the Zaku essentially, like, takes off running, and he takes off running after it.
Yep.
It's like, no, come here.
Well, and
No survivors.
And the 8th team manages to push forward to reach some of their troops that were like cut off, but Shiro meanwhile has been separated from the rest of them because one of the Zakus that he damaged sets off essentially a flashbang in his face, which disables his mobile suit's navigation systems, and so then when the next day comes around, he's lost in the jungle. It's muddy, and he falls in a muddy river, gets attacked by leeches, and he's just sort of like, people live in this part of the world.
And for whatever reason, I guess it turned out to be a good thing because of where he was at, running around out of the suit. He was wearing a normal suit that what we frequently saw in the original Mobile Suit Gundam, and it's funny because he was the only one wearing one.
Yeah. Because it's Southeast Asia, it's hot as fuck. Everyone else is sweating up a storm, so they are wearing enough to stay decent and cool, without yeah, it's just
without anybody trying to like fully sweat their asses off.
Exactly. But eventually Shiro finds like a waterfall and finds a stream so he can clean some of the mud off of his face, get a fresh drink of water, and then. Naked tits.
I have a strange theory about this.
Teenage titties. What?
Those titties inflicted my life because now I'm dating a redhead.
Dating? You're married to a redhead.
So Gundam, thanks to you, I am now married to a redhead.
So that's where your thing for redheads started.
Yeah. Well, and when the girl spots him, this girl we'll learn later is Kiki Rosita, with the gorillas in the area. She spots him, grabs a gun, and starts shooting at him.
I just love this thought process. I'm going to sit here and look at the naked pretty girl. Oh, this is so cute.
And then beep.
Alarm. Not the first response of turn it off, run away. No, it's turn it off. Duh.
Yeah,
Oh, she got a gun.
turn it off, then turn it off. Okay.
Not so much as...
Okay, alarm is off. Tits.
Not so much as turn off, it's more of struggle to turn off.
Yeah. And then, he finally makes it, but eventually he makes it back to the base. where everyone had been like, yeah, you lost your CO already, huh?
Well, he did find that Zaku also. Which,
and took it down.
Which he. It was missing an arm. Shot the hell out of it.
And it pulls out its axe and it's just like, I'm gonna take you with me. And he just shoots it like crazy until it finally falls over. I was half expecting like the pilot to crawl out and like pull out a gun and still try to keep shooting him.
He had a giant hole through him. I don't think it's gonna work.
There were some giant holes through Sanders' mech, and he still, he was okay.
Yeah.
But then that sort of goes along with his curse, which we should probably address, because he's called Sanders the Reaper, because, or also the Team Killer. Not because he kills his team, but because every third mission that he goes on with, his team dies and he survives.
This is mission 1.
And that's why nobody really wants to work with the guy, and why everybody keeps poking fun at the 8th team, like, you got the Reaper.
Yeah, nice knowing y'all.
You don't feel the Reaper?
Pretty much.
Well, in this case, you should fear the Reaper.
Well, but then their second mission is when they need to try to take this village that the Zeon have occupied. But the Zeon are entrenched. They've got pillboxes and Zaku with a lot of heavy artillery to hand,
and the mountain to cover them,
and a mountain at their backs, and Shiro
and a river in between.
And Shiro basically is like, we can't. If attacking head on is suicide, what if we come around here along this river? There's some like waterfalls right here, and follow the river around, and then we can flank them. And he's like, I know where these waterfalls are. I've seen them. And Joshua's just like, you'll want to be careful going through there. There are gorillas in that.
I got this, no problem.
Yep. And he basically says, you move up to here and hold position until 1500. And then we'll give them everything you got, and I'll attack them from the side.
We can only do this for about an hour, Coach.
And so he heads off, finds the waterfall, and then, surprise, gorillas!
Well, first Kiki pops up, because he can hear somebody essentially knocking on his suit.
Yeah.
And Kiki just pops up over one of the Gundam's cameras. He opens the hatch up, and there's like 3 more pointing their guns at him.
And they start beating the shit out of him because they assumed he came back to try to see Kiki's tits again.
They were all maggots. They never saw her tits.
Yeah, they literally said, we haven't even seen that.
And they're beating him up over it. They're like crawling all over his mobile suit.
Yeah.
And they basically march him off to town to meet with their boss.
Watching this episode makes me always wonder the same question I always wondered. How the hell do you drive a mobile suit? Because you remember, he's using the throttles, so in every game or anything else like that, you have the throttles to move you forward. No, this thing's meant to move the head. Because he's like, you know how to drive this? Yeah, I got this. Turn head left, turn head right, got top.
There's a reason why you need training to pilot one of these things. So if you move it this way, it only moves the head. But if you move it this way, then you start walking.
I always go to the gas pedal theory. That
why are there 6 pedals when there are only 4 directions?
One's the clutch.
I was quoting Red versus Blue. No, that was the Reds.
Oh, Caboose that said that.
Might have been Caboose. Wait, Caboose was on the red team.
No, it was the other because the Blues had the tank. Because remember, the Reds were on their way.
See, I told you could pick girls up in a tank.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, 8th MS team.
Tanks.
But they march them off to meet with the boss of the gorillas.
Who's Kiki's dad.
Yep. Looks like Sagat and is in a wheelchair.
And wears a robe because he's a pimp like that.
Yep. And, Shiro's trying to impress upon him. It's just sort of like, I'm not here to fight you. The Zeon are your enemy too. But you need to let me go. My friends are waiting for me. Time is of the essence. And then they're like, oh, look, it's 3:00. We always have tea at this time.
And they're just saying it so casually too.
As some tea is poured for him, and then he's just sipping it. Shiro's just like starting to freak out.
It's like,
Mind
God,
games.
Yep. But then he finally makes a deal with them. It's just sort of like, we'll help liberate the village. You guys can take the spoils from that. And he's just sort of like, well, we have wounded and sick, and he's like, then we'll bring you medicine. You got to let me go. And they're like, fine, but you're taking Kiki with you.
She's like, I'll be his guide.
And so she rides in the cockpit with him while he basically marches through the river. Finally manages to make it there, sort of just before the time limit started to run out, and took out the Zeon ammo dump, and fought a Zeon Zaku pilot, a captain. I don't remember who.
He was basically there. He was like a high-ranking member who was going there for an inspection, and the inspection just happened to be when the attack happened.
Yep, but he survived though. He got away.
Oh yeah, but he looks over at the helicopter pilot who was flying him there. He was like, "Bring me to my Zaku." Brings him to his Zaku, and then the pilot tries to take on one of the Gundams in the helicopter.
Yep.
Shoots a missile at it. He's like, "Die!" And the Gundam just turns around with the bazooka at hand and shoots it, and boom.
Yep, it didn't go well for him, and then the guerrillas meanwhile are helping assault the village and fight off the Zeon, and then they're basically just sort of taking everything that they can, including stuff from the Fed forces.
They take shit from the hover tank.
Yeah, and Shiro's just like, we can order more.
Don't worry, guys, we can order more. Now, mind you, while they're raiding the hover truck, they threw Mikhail and Elidor out.
Yep.
And you can hear them talking as they're raiding the hover truck. You hear one of them say, "Hey, they got nudie pictures."
Yeah.
And one of them legit says, "Hey, I know this one."
I did catch that. That was pretty damn funny. And yeah, so they basically made allies with the guerrillas, at least for now.
For now, yeah.
And they took out a Zeon base. And meanwhile, and then in the next episode, we're introduced to the Obsolus, which had been referenced in the previous episodes, but we hadn't actually seen it until now.
So
it's a big motherfucker.
So, yeah, it's a big mobile armor. So, not to go too spoilery into this, but this was the Obsolus 1.
Okay.
And this is literally the test flight model. It's literally just... It has no weapons.
It's a proof of concept, essentially.
Yeah, as what you saw in the episode, it doesn't have any weapons. So it has no real defensive capabilities other than to use its bulk as its main form of defense. So, hence that big red shield-looking thing, that's where the weapon would be.
Yeah.
I like how you say there's no weapons, but yeah, it blew a hole in the ground, made the trees fly that way.
That was it using its propulsion system.
Yep, that's the best weapon. It don't need a weapon. It throws shit at you.
Yep. And it's basically the Obsolus is Aina's brother, Gineas. His ambition was to build this thing to help them win the war, and she's piloting it and testing it out. Has a successful test flight, and then, yay, celebration! Let's have a reception. Fancy dress and everything, and then this Zeon Admiral Kalani shows up and is basically just a loud, obnoxious jerk.
They have one of those in every series, don't they? So
yeah, of course. It's part of the trope.
He assumes that the Absolus, once it's finished, is going to the front lines and
in Europe where he's stationed.
Yes, because where he's at is Odessa.
Yep, and then he spots Aina, who had, when she saw him, was just sort of like, I'm just going to go over here, and he then just sort of follows her and tries to basically flirt with her, and it's just like, you want to be my girlfriend? And she's like, no. And she finally
touch me.
She finally leaves, and Kalani sees the next pilot test flight of it, which is when it runs into the eighth team.
Mission 3.
Mission 3, yeah, and we had Sanders. Before all of that, Sanders, finally got the team from 7th poked the bear one too many times, and he finally started to try to kick their ass. But it's 1 against 3.
Yeah, 1 on 3.
Well, it was started off 2 versus 1. Because like 2 of the guys are fighting 1, and then the third guy jumped in and started helping.
Well, it's because he had thrown one of them aside, and the other 2, grabbed him. Then the third guy just got back up.
Sanders is not a small guy.
Nope. And Shiro, Mikkel goes and gets Shiro, who comes in, cold cocks one of them, but then Kojima breaks it all up. It's just sort of like,
what's going on here? Oh, friendly physical competition between
just a friendly spar, sir.
between MS teams. It's like friendly, huh?
Yeah, he's just sort of like, he knows it's bullshit, but he's just sort of like, I'm gonna pretend that you're telling me the truth, so I don't have to issue too much punishment.
I want to avoid this paperwork, so.
And it'd be better for morale if they're not seen to get punished for it.
Yeah. So 7th team, he's like, aren't you guys supposed to be over in this area doing this mission? Yes, sir. And then he's like, all right, go do it.
8th team, stand by.
8th team, stand by. Everybody else, go to wherever the hell you're needed.
Yeah. And then later, Sanders tried to resign from the team as pilot, and that's when he explains why he's called the Reaper, the team killer, and this curse that he has. In the third mission, his team dies and he survives.
Which it's funny because going back to the first episode, you see him kind of like mention it, but you don't know why he's saying,
yeah,
all right, I guess I'm the only survivor again.
Yeah. And as all this is happening, then Joshua, Karen Joshua gets up and kicks him in the balls. It's just sort of like, coward.
Oh, so you do have a pair after all.
And Shiro basically is just sort of like, your resignation is not accepted. Just, we're gonna be fine. You just watch.
You can't resonate in the middle of a mission.
Yeah. Resign is what you meant, not resonate.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, Arthur.
Yeah. And then that's when they run into the Obsolus, because it's having some hiccups with its flight mode and everything.
Well, that's why they're testing it out, and that's also the reason why she has 2 escorts with her.
If these Zaku people only got them, giant mechs all together in one spot and worked on the blueprints all in one spot, they might not have these issues. Because at this point in time, they're making another mobile.
Are you trying to use common sense there?
Yes.
Are you talking about the big Zom?
Yes. Are they kind of like working on that project on the side?
That's it. That's in space, though.
But it's still the
Well,
same
and then there
thing.
was also some of the mobile armor that we, like one of the first mobile armors that we saw, not the big Zom, but one of the other ones.
The one that Amuro came across, the
yeah.
one where he ditched White Base.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was more like a precursor to the mobile armors.
But nevertheless, it's just sort of like they're all working on them in different places across the solar system.
Different teams.
Exactly.
Mafia families are working on different guns, so it sounds like to me.
Yeah. Well, pretty much.
So yours doesn't have the recoil, but ours has a better scope, and yours has a bigger clip. Why aren't we working together?
Yeah. We'll make a gun that can hold a lot of ammo, that has less recoil and has a scope. We make that work, and then we're golden. We'll split the profits 3 ways.
But while the 8th team is waiting for the Absolus and its 2 escorts to fly overhead, meanwhile, sorry, I'm being distracted by something.
Yeah, you too, huh?
Yeah, I think we're all hearing it. Hopefully, it's not being picked up on the.
Oh, I will laugh hysterically.
I doubt it will.
But Elidor is picking up the sound of not really of the Absolus itself, but also the radio chatter, and he's forwarding it to Shiro, and Shiro says, "All right, we're gonna wait for this thing to fly overhead. Nobody shoot it."
Yeah.
And what happens?
Mikkel panics.
Mikkel panics. The second he sees not the Absolus, but the 2 escorts, he shoots at them. They're like, all right, concentrate your fire on that one spot. And Shiro's like, who the hell ordered you to fire?
Yeah.
And the best part about it, he's like,
So yeah, it's, he panicked. It's what happens in these scenarios a lot of the time.
It's like, all right, you can put your hand on the handles, but don't put your finger on the damn trigger.
What did we tell you about Mr. Safety Catch? When Mr. Safety Catch is not on, Mr. Machine Gun is not your friend. And so they end up fighting off the escort, and then the obelisk just doesn't land, but it comes down low enough that its Minovsky particle propulsion system just whoosh, like craters the ground.
It literally looks like what's that place in Russia, Tunguska?
Yeah, the Tunguska event.
It looks like that. And meanwhile, the Sanders is going, I'm not the Reaper. He's just going to
He
town.
goes full ham.
He's going full.
Unloading all of his ammo and pulling his beam saber.
He's going full Leroy Jenkins on it.
And that's partly because with when Joshua launched her mobile suit up to try to shoot at the escort, the obelisk comes out of nowhere and just goes bam! It just rams it and
slams right into her.
Sends her flying, and that's what basically caused Sanders to start freaking out. But between him attacking with his beam saber and then Joshua and Shiro opening fire with their guns, the Zeon are just sort of like, get out of there, and so she retreats, and then they're just sort of like, they say to Sanders, like, see, we survived, the curse is broken, relax, you're fine, we're fine, we're all alive,
we're fine, we're all
we can
fine
take
here.
on anything, we can even take on a Jinx.
What was that from the first Star Wars movie? We're fine, we're all fine down here,
how are you? Yeah, but it's definitely, I can see what you mean by the whole, like, it's very grounded sort of thing. And I liked they're still keeping up like the sound design with this. Like, you hear like the heavy weight of the mobile suits, ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk as they're walking around.
Yeah, I don't understand why when they were doing like the essentially like the remastering of the original Mobile Suit Gundam, I understand why this would probably upset some fans, but like, go and replace the original sound effects with the ones that they used for like 8th MS Team and Stardust Memory and all that.
Yeah.
Just so that way it's a little bit more
consistent across the time period, sort of thing.
So you keep mentioning that, but my brain, every time we start watching mech stuff, like no matter what, it does not beat the sound effect of big old walking.
Yeah, I think I think may have commented on that during Pacific Rim. That's just
Pacific Rim, original Mobile Suit. Every time we mention sound effects, I mention this because it does not beat it.
No.
Big O is one of those ones I need to check out too. Another one to add to the list, but
it's on the list.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. But yeah, I'm definitely liking this one. The whole it's the Vietnam War, but with mobile suits.
I like this one.
I thought it was because of boobies.
That too.
There's that. There's a lot more movies in there than I realized before.
I think is that I'm trying.
But those boobies are underage.
I'm trying.
Hey, when I first started watching them, they were legal.
He has a point. We were all in high school at the time.
They were legal boobies at the time.
Yes.
Now it just makes
you are not in high school anymore.
Yeah, those movies don't age very well.
I am almost 40. It's just sort of like, don't pop a boner, don't pop a boner. Stop it.
Down, boy.
Yeah, but I kind of missed watching Gundam stuff. But we'll take breaks in between Gundam series as we go along, and this one is going to be a 3-part binge because it's a 13 episodes.
13 episodes plus Miller's Report.
Okay, so
and like I said, Miller's Report technically takes place between like episodes 7 and 8. So like between 7 and 8, we'll stop and then pop in Miller's Report, then watch that.
So then it'll essentially be this one was a 4-episode binge. The next 2 will essentially be 5 because of Miller's Report.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so 8th MS Team, definitely a good one. The grounded aspect of it, so you're not dealing with space and all the zero-G stuff and everything.
This thing with the zero-G and stuff, if they made space combat actually like real-life combat, that would still be interesting. It's just more the fact of the reality, because like one of the things I mentioned in the original original Gundam was the fact that certain characters I liked the most because they were more grounded, they were more realistic in this fictional universe. And this one reason why I love this specific series so much, because it is more grounded in reality than it is of, ooh, look at the fantasy stuff over here. I mean, granted, it's a giant mech, which would never, wait, hold on, Japan made it, so it does exist.
You haven't watched Iron Blooded Orphans yet, have you?
Oh, I have not done that yet, no, I want to.
You're going to like that one.
But yeah, 8th MS Team, Part 1 is finished. So we will see you again soon for the next one. But for Zeke and Chris, I am Jay, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Bored to Death Bingecast. Be sure to check out our library of past podcasts via CKCC Radio or via our YouTube channel, and give us a like and subscribe. We'll see you after our next binge.